Professor Himanshu Tambe. He is going to be our next speaker. So I'll just have a brief profile of his, not a very long, though we have a long, very short. Himanshu's, Professor Himanshu's passion is to empower individuals and organizations to thrive through continuous education. He pursues this by teaching at management schools in India and Singapore and mentoring undergraduates and executive education students. Till recent, he was a visiting faculty at the Singapore Management University, teaching business model designs. At ISB, he teaches corporate strategies, organization design, and strategy consulting. He also runs an early stage software product company focused on optimizing operations. Prior to this, he held several senior roles at Accenture, strategy and consulting. The last one being the Managing Director of Talent and Organization Strategy in Southeast Asia and India. He also worked for Arthur D. Little, and Indian-based niche strategy and organization design consulting company, and worked as an automobile manufacturing engineer at the very start of his career. So we welcome you, sir. Please come to the dais. Take over the stage. Thank you.
So it's the post-lunch session. They call it the graveyard shift. I am very sure, sir. I am absolutely sure. In Hyderabad and in your blessed hospitality, a light lunch is not happening. So, but it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, Shekharji. Murli is not here, but he is the person who is responsible for me standing here. So, thanks to him in absentia. Murli is Mr. Muralidharan. Some of you probably know him. TMI. So I was asked to speak on this topic of how groups behave. And when I look around the room, there are so many academics and so many distinguished people here. I'm not sure I'm speaking to the learned already, right? So, and I also decided not to use PowerPoint because I think we've had enough death by PowerPoint, right? The only person who gets rich in the bargain is Microsoft, I think. So what I want to do is share some very initial thoughts, maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then open it up for some Q&A. It'll be more interesting if you do that, right? And although there is a lot to speak on this topic, I want to pick up one thread. And the thread I want to pick up is, although conflict is a natural state of being, how come in corporates there is so much of silence? How come in corporates there is always visible agreement to everything? And what is the cost of that silence? And in today's day and age, can we afford that? Right? And if you want to do something about it, then what is the responsibility of leaders like all of you? To make corporates more vibrant, living organizations where people can healthily disagree and innovate, right? So that's the theme of my topic. Very simple, just one strand out of this overall vast topic of group dynamics, social dynamics, etc., etc. But one that I keep coming across. I have now done 30 plus years of consulting, another 7-8 years of automobile manufacturing, and I've always found that there is a phenomena in organizations which is very difficult to explain, and that is the phenomena of everyone seems to be agreeing inside the meeting room, and when they go out into the water coolers, they're all, why does that happen? And is that healthy? What does that say about organizations? Health, etc., etc., right? So I'll start with a very basic question, and I think all of us will hopefully remember some of our mathematics. If n people get together, how many ways can they interact in? Infinitum? Seriously? Did you make that up? No, seriously, let me ask a question seriously and think for 30 seconds before you answer. If n people interact, how many ways, if n people exist in an organization, even this room is an organization of sorts, right? How many ways can we interact? I'm sorry, no, that's not right. You just remember your maths. Lovely. Who said that? Thank you, ma'am. It had to be the youngest in the room. Thank you. Thank you. N into n minus 1 divided by 2. NC2. Permutations and combinations. 101. N into n minus 1 divided by 2. So in other words, if two people interact, or two people in the room, there are 3 ways of interacting. If that becomes 5, there are 10 ways of interacting. If there are 20 people, it goes up to 190 ways of interacting, and so on and so forth. So it is not arithmetic, it's geometric, right? It's an explosion. It's a quadratic equation if you remember the maths. Yeah? And this is natural. This is the natural state of being. No matter what you do, this is the natural state of being. Whether it is healthy or unhealthy depends upon how you harness it. Isn't it? Disagreements can be healthy also. So basically, when there is a conflict in an organization, don't take it personally. It's nothing to do with the people. It is structural. It was designed that way. So that is why larger teams become more difficult to manage. Smaller teams are easier to manage. That is why some organizations say that when you are more than a size of 100, 120 people, you should spin off a new company. And there are companies who do that. So some of you may have heard of this company called Haier, which is a white good manufacturing company, Chinese company. They have 1,000 odd satellite companies, all within the brand of Haier. Each company is no more than 120, 150 people. And each one is a P&L. And they are very, very productive, extremely efficient. Simply because as organizations become large and the number of disagreements they have and the number of conflicts they get into, it makes it more and more and more difficult to manage such systems. Correct? So, what I'm trying to explain to you is conflict is structural, it is not personal. That's the first point I want to make. But why do conflicts occur? And if you go back to academic theory, so many academicians, very senior legends like Dr. Mishra here, and many of Dr. Mishra's disciples, proteges over here, you will remember what Ronald Coase said, right? Ronald Coase's transaction theory says that human beings don't satisfy, they satisfice, right? Which means they do just about enough. And the reason they do it is because everyone doesn't have access to the same information. And there are many other such structural barriers which cause the conflict in the first place. Yeah? So, there are so many such examples of how conflicts happen. You will remember, I will not take names, but you will remember a recent global pharma company which had a blockbuster drug. And, well, I didn't say it, you said it. So, yeah, they had a blockbuster drug. And so what happened? R&D said, I've got a blockbuster drug, go out and sell it. What did commercial say? Marketing say? Hit the market, do this, do that. Turn back, manufacturing wasn't ready to produce. How can that happen in an organization? How can such coordination errors happen? Right? Think about it. Sorry? Well, that's because all these 3 people were incentivized differently, right? They were all incentivized differently. R&D was incentivized for something, commercial was incentivized for something else, manufacturing was incentivized for something else. So, and you'll see this everywhere, right? Because of these barriers that we put around us, and there is no way to avoid it, by the way. You can structure an organization whichever way you like, you will create a tribe. And within the tribe, it is me versus you. So whether you structure by function or I've done many org transformations, global transformations. They all end up, after 3-4 years, they get into trouble. So, conflict is inevitable, right? But conflict can be healthy, right? So, take this idea, right, and see the conflict is one dimension, and then the other dimension is interdependence, right? Let's say you and me get into a conflict, but we have no dependence on each other. What will we do? Ignore each other. We have no dependence on each other. Yeah? Let's say we have no conflict and there is no dependence on each other. We'll just be friends, we'll go to a club, we'll have a drink and we'll come back. The issue starts when there is dependence, right? And the issue starts when, if there is no conflict and there is high dependence, we will get together and we will do stuff. The problem arises when there is dependence and there is conflict, right? So if you do a 2x2, you understand the idea, right? You will get these 4 quadrants and you'll get these different ways of looking at it. Yeah? So the point is that this conflict will happen because in organizations, although we are structured like this, work always happens like this, right? We are all dependent on each other for an organizational outcome to occur. So if this is a natural state, why is it that in organizations everyone seems to agree with everything to everyone? At least visibly. Do you have a theory? Why? Yes, sir.
The least bothered.
But why are they least bothered?
They don't care about the organization's output. They just care about their pay.
You think they'll get their pay if organization doesn't achieve the output?
Like at least for a good future that they can see for a year or 2.
Okay. So short term. Short term.
They don't want to get a, they don't want their pink slip.
But if they don't want the pink slip, then what he's saying can't be, right?
You can say ignorance is a bliss.
But is it really bliss? Which situation is it bliss? In no situation is it bliss. If the organization is not doing well, you can't do well. For some time you can, after that you can't. So, no, I agree with you. Conflict may not be against the organization. But very often, there is no conflict inside the room, but when they go out and stand at the water cooler or in the coffee shop, there's a lot of conflict. So my point is, why does that happen? Why does that phenomena occur? That's a very important aspect of group dynamics. Yes, sir. So, look, there are many reasons, but in our kind of societies, very Asian societies, there is a concept of power distance. Right? You understand power distance. That's just us. It's not just us. So in Japan, it's so in Korea, it's so in China, it's so in this part of the world. In fact, as you go more and more towards the east, it's even more and more so. Right? I remember when I worked in Korea for a year, I was told that for every meeting there is a pre-meeting. And for every pre-meeting there is a pre-pre-meeting. So when you go to the actual meeting, all you do is have a cup of tea and do a toast, which is in their Korean, they have a way of doing a toast with a small little glass of alcohol, and that's the end of the meeting. Because the king cannot get any bad news. Right? The king cannot get any bad news, so all the bad news is dealt with before you get there.
Consensus is already built up.
Sorry?
Consensus is already built up.
Consensus is already built up. If you raise your hand when you speak, at least I'll know where you are. So, yeah, consensus is already built up. That, however, also has the downside, which is it prevents people from speaking freely. So, yesterday or day before yesterday, the CEO of, not OpenAI, Cloud, Anthropic, I think he was in India or he was somewhere? Yeah, he was in India, and he said, the worst thing you can do is listen to your elders. Or some silly remark like that. So, I don't think he understood the cultural context in which he was speaking. But anyway, he said that. Maybe. But whether you should listen or not is not the question. The question is, if you disagree, are you able to bring up your disagreements in a respectful way? In societies like us, it's very difficult. That's one of the reasons why people stay silent. Right? So that's Gert Hofstede, power distance, all those academic concepts. What are the other reasons people stay silent, in your view?
Because dissent is a disturbance.
So?
So why should I be the tall poppy?
So? If you are, what will happen?
If I am the tall poppy, then probably I will be segregated from the main group.
So why take the risk?
Why take the risk?
Let somebody else tell the same thing.
Why take the risk? Right? Who will bail the cat? And that's what this lady Edmondson, what's her name? I can't remember her first name. Something Edmondson. She's called psychological safety, right? It's a big buzzword nowadays in all organizations. We will measure psych safety, they say. They don't even know how to define it, but they say we'll measure psych safety. Yeah. Anyway, so psychological safety, there is no psychological safety. So therefore, bringing up dissent is a high risk. And why should I? It's not that they don't care about the company, young man. I don't agree with you. I very much care about the company. It's just it's too risky. It's too hard. Sorry? You'll be not just on the spotlight, you'll be standing outside. You'll be outstanding. You will be termed outstanding, which means you stand out. Right? So it's too much of a risk. So I won't take the risk. There's nothing in it for me. There's so many examples of this, right? You've heard that story of the Korean Airways crash and what happened and why the co-pilot, even after knowing everything, didn't raise his voice and what happened after. So that's the cost of silence. Another example is NASA. And NASA used to buy these O-rings, all of you are very senior engineers over here. So O-rings, and O-rings don't operate under a certain temperature. And so this, I can't remember the name of the company that was supplying these O-ring seals to NASA. Day or two before the launch, they got on, this is the Bay of Pigs disaster, if you remember, long ago, and said that, look, these O-rings are not built for the temperatures that you are going to expose it to. So the chap who said was a engineer, right? And his supervisor told him, he says, Bill, or whatever his name was, Bill, put on your management hat, drop your engineering hat. So he said, yes, it's fine, you can do it under these circumstances. And you know what happened? NASA spacecraft crashed for that very reason. So the cost of silence is very high. It can be in some cases very, very, very high. We've had hundreds of examples in our own country, Satyam in our own city, Byju's. So many corporate governance failures in this country. Someone has kept quiet because it's too expensive to open your mouth. The risk is too high. Why should I be the one who bells the cat, like someone of you said? So, it's an interesting phenomena, right? Conflict is inevitable, yet what you meet in organizations is silence. And that's because of the risk involved. The psych safety doesn't exist. Because we are also culturally not attuned to questioning our seniors. So, when you can't question, there are only two options. Either you stay on and you sabotage, or you leave. Most people won't leave. Most people find it easier to stay in the system and sabotage it. What is sabotage? Just to survive with the system? No, I think with a vengeance they do it. Of course they do it with a vengeance. Of course we know it. We may pretend that it doesn't exist. It happens all the time. Right? So, So then the question is, what can you do about it? So there are formal ways of dealing with it, right? You will assign KPIs, you will put in place governance, you will get some people some power, some other people some power, etc., etc. That's one way by which you bring more coordination. In mathematical terms, you find a theta. So that n into n minus 1 divided by 2, you reduce it. How do you reduce it? By adding a theta in front of it. What is theta? It's an integration parameter. Sorry, you can see I'm come from a mathematics background. I'm trying to convert even behavioral science topics into maths. I do that because I love measurement. I think that's the only way to go ahead. If you don't measure, you don't manage. Never mind. I mean, so then what does the Western management philosophy tells us? Use power. So there's a guy called Jeffrey Pfeiffer. I encourage all of you to listen to his podcast. In his podcast, he says, power is about manipulation. You should manipulate. You know, you should use narratives like this. You should do this. You should do that, etc., etc. You compare that to how our Indian philosophy talks about power. And Indian philosophy, power is Shakti. What is Shakti? It's a strength. Huh? Takat. किस लिए? ताकत किस लिए? To do something for others. So in our culture, in our sort of heritage, power is a responsibility. In the Western philosophy, power is authority. We've all been brought up in Western ways of thinking. Although we come from this part, we've been all brought up in the Western way of thinking. So we all think that power is a way of exercising authority. So manipulation is power. Correct? Coercion is power. But that doesn't work for too long. So I'm proposing, and in business schools when I teach this course, I propose a very alternate way of thinking about power. Power is Shakti. You have Maitri Shakti, Shakti of friendship. You have Vidya Shakti, right? Power of expertise. You have Ichha Shakti, which is the power of conviction. I'm convinced that this has to be done. That's what startups do, right? Founders have Ichha Shakti, nothing else. They have nothing else going for them. They just have conviction in their idea. And then over a period of time, they harness that and build it and so on. So, power as a concept to bring people together, to coordinate and to quell conflicts and to ensure collaboration, etc., etc., will work if it is used as a way of serving them as opposed to as a way of manipulating them. This is my hypothesis. This is what I have learned both from theory as well as from practice. So the point, I mean, all of this said, and I'm going to end my talk right here now. What can people like all of us do about it? We are all in organizations. We are either running organizations or we are part of organizations. And even in that organization, we have our own sphere of influence where we have some authority. Yesterday I was with a bunch of government officers. And पूरी राम कथा होने के बाद वो कहते हैं सर मेरे पास तो कुछ अथॉरिटी नहीं है, मेरे हाथ पूरे बंधे हुए हैं. Like I cannot do anything. So I said, बड़ा बुरा हाल है सर आपका. If you don't have any sphere of influence, when I said that, I said no, हमारे है, we have some control. So I said, well, let us see what you can do within your sphere of influence. And they came up with some wonderful ideas. But I think otherwise we think that we have no power, right? And I think a lot of us are in that. And when we are in that sphere, we externalize. Structure का problem है, government का problem है, इसका problem है, उसका problem है. मेरा तो कोई problem नहीं है, मैं तो बड़ा बढ़िया इंसान हूँ. So I'm proposing to you that you as a manager have power. That you can do something. What is it that you can do? First and foremost, humility. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it corrupts over here. I think there is also neuroscience evidence to show that your brain structure changes with power. You can only read Epstein files to know, right? How much power corrupts? What was the need for those fellows to do what they did? Just think about it. But power. So the first thing that you can do if you want to really create an environment of collaboration is you learn to be humble. And humility shows. It is either you are there or you are not there. You cannot pretend. Sorry. That is one thing, either you are or you aren't. And any person who walks into a room, within 3 minutes they will make out. You open your mouth and they'll make out what is your level of humility. Some people will huzur you, some people will tell you off. So that's one thing that is in your power, you can do. Be humble. Yes? The second thing is separate respect from agreement. Just because a person agrees with you doesn't mean he respects you. We fall into this trap. Anyone who doesn't disagree with me is the enemy. In fact, the guy who disagrees with you is your best friend. He means well for you. But we can't separate between that because again I think our ego comes in between. So that is another thing you can do. Very practical, it is in your control. You can train your mind to do it. There are techniques and ways by which you can do it. The third is what I call radical transparency. Again, I'm saying things which are probably not easy to practice, but I think good management and good leadership is not easy anyway. So whoever told you leadership is an easy job is not. It's one of the hardest jobs in my view. Radical transparency basically means that always ask the question, what have we not discussed? And why have we not discussed it? This is what I have found great leaders do. I have followed some great leaders. I've had the good fortune of working with some great CEOs and leaders and entrepreneurs also. And they ask for radical, this is a term that this fellow has coined, Ray Dalio, Bridgewater Associates, right? The great investment guy. So that, and then the last thing I would say, and then I'll stop, is handle the conflict as early as you can. We also like to kick the ball down the can because ho jayega. The earlier you solve it, the better will be the moment you see a hint of a conflict, bring it to the surface and solve it. I find that much easier and much better. So there are things we can do to avoid this silence in the room, silent agreement. If everyone around you in a meeting has agreed to you, you are in trouble, man. Yes. You are in serious trouble. That's all I can tell you. You must have someone disagreeing with you. You must have contest. You must have debate. And then only you are getting to a solution that is worthwhile. So I'll just say this. Leadership is not about eliminating conflict. It is actually about eliminating silence. Right? And so on that note, I'll say thank you. I hope it made sense. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, back to you, Reena.
It's a really nice speech and an interactive. Because of the post-lunch, everyone is a little bit drowsy. But with your session, it really got engaged. So this is Srikanth. I just have a couple of things. So as you were mentioning the leadership and conflicts and all, I just have a quick question, especially for this generation. So I can see most of the elderly people, people here. Now our generation, especially what you call Gen Z, they are much more exposed to the society, much more exposed to the internet, social media and all. Where it comes to there are many conflicts here, especially many disagreements. So how do you define how we can solve this kind of things when it comes to the business segment for the young generation?
How can we solve what specifically?
How we can keep this conflict much more in a healthy way, as you're mentioning.
How do you make conflict healthy?
Healthy for a young generation, especially who are in the early and mid-20s.
Yeah. So I'm not sure whether I'll answer your question exactly the way you asked it, but one of the big problems a lot of organizations are having is dealing with cross-generational workforces. You have 3 generations in a workforce in some companies. What is conflict for one generation is actually a healthy conversation for another generation, right? So how do you build that level of sensitization across generations? And it's not just for the elders, I think it is for the Gen Zs as well, or the younger generation. I don't want to use Gen Z as anyway, I don't think there's any Gen Z in this room. You are certainly not a Gen Z. So, right? Sorry? You must be managing as a Gen Z. I teach Gen Zs every day. The average age in my class is 22, 24. They are not the same as maybe even 3 years ago the students I used to teach. You have to be willing to be challenged. As a 60-year-old, I'm saying this. You need to be open to being challenged by a 22-year-old, and have a discussion on the merits of the case, as opposed to preconceived notions that you have. They know more than you in some areas. So again, humility. So this is how you can create an environment where people actually talk about issues and not about personalities. But it's easier said than done. I'm just making it out to be so simple. It requires a lot of self-mastery on both sides. And that's the whole issue, right? I think it all begins with self-mastery. And that's the last thing we are taught. The whole education system doesn't teach us to conquer ourselves. Because we have learned from the West, right? The West says the problem is out there. The Eastern philosophy says the problem is inside here. And the strength is also inside here. To deal with it, the strength is here, the problem is here. The West says the problem is outside. Which is why their definition of leadership is, they have to do what I want them to do. Whereas you go back and look at any Indian literature, any Indian, or not only Indian, Eastern, Buddhist, Japanese, all of that, it's about what do I do for you. So we have to recall our roots, actually. I think there's a lot in there.
Sir, my name is Preetham. What is the definition of power?
Power. I think I mentioned it briefly, sir. Power in a certain school of thought. I mean, if you look at what Karl Marx said, you go back to those days and all of that, power is equal to authority. So power is derived from the seat I sit in. How do I explain this? The role I occupied gives me power. That is what the Western definition of power is. So if you read Jeffrey Pfeiffer and some of these leading scholars on power, and even if you see how power is used by Western executives, it is always, by being the CEO, I have certain powers and I will exercise them.
Sir,
Till it is?
Misused or abused, power is not power. Because it is simply a duty, job, responsibility, whatever, wherever you are sitting, you are supposed to do as per delegation or whatever it is, you need to do. But you start misusing, abusing, or whatever you are doing, that it becomes power.
So you have answered the question. I think you were hoping that I will say what you want to say, but
okay, sir.
you have answered your own question. That is correct.
So
that is indeed the common perception of power, but I disagree with it, is what I am saying.
Sir, one small.
And I think I am urging all of you to reject that definition of power.
One small thing.
Ji.
Good evening to all. Sir, how you actually, as a CEO of so many systems and all, how you correlate conflict and lifestyles? Because you might have seen so many lifestyles in the work area, in your conflict management. How you look at how you solve it? Is it any guidance you can give to the form? Thank you. Conflict management, otherwise because of lifestyles. Conflict management because of lifestyles. What we are getting now in the current scenario.
Conflict that occurs because of the stress that we face.
Okay, everyone. The lifestyles because there is a big change in lifestyles. Whether from college student or university or.
So are you saying conflict is happening now and before it didn't happen?
It's happening, but now it's a very the communication is so high. Things are getting at rapid speed.
So are you saying there are more conflicts now than there were in the past?
Otherwise,
I'm trying to understand your question, sir, so that I can give you a good answer.
yeah, okay, my understanding is now conflicts are very fast before they come to a decision. That's what my understanding is.
Sir, conflict is a natural state of phenomena. It happened when we were all, when the earth, when the world was created. So I don't associate it to any stress, and it's all externalizing.
But lifestyles are more impact on the work area or stress or environment or in product.
Sir, we didn't live in those days. No, we didn't know what stress they had. So I don't buy that logic. Sorry. I think this is externalizing. I will not subscribe to any theory that externalizes.
So one question.
Yes, sir.
In your experience of dealing with companies, have you found that the organizational health of the company and there is a relationship with the conflicts?
Very big.
And so how and in what manner can this be equalized or in your experience?
No, sir, absolutely. Organization health is a direct outcome, in some sense, of the state of interactions or the level of collaboration and coordination. The biggest failures in organization happen because of lack of collaboration, sir. Lack of coordination in companies. Boeing is in the mess that it is in. If you go back and read all the case studies and read the past and all that, they are in that kind of mess only because of internal collaboration didn't happen. And this is true across the board. There are instruments out there to measure it. Some people are trying to do it. I'm myself involved in some research where we are trying to develop what's called a safe voice index. So do people feel safe to voice what they want and feel? But we are a far ways from it, sir. The whole basis of leadership is flawed. So till that underlying infrastructure of what leadership means doesn't change, I doubt whether we will get there in the long run. And the answer to those questions lie with us, sir, in our culture. That I'm profoundly in that view after having spent 35, 36 years in this business. But how do we get the message out there? How do we get more people to adopt it? Anyways, yes, sir.
Don't you think the conflicts, some of the conflicts resolve itself in human side?
They do. They seemingly resolve themselves, only to come back as a cancer somewhere else.
Sir, I have a question.
I will do that. Let me just take her question.
First of all, thank you so much for a very insightful session. And it was very pleasing to hear about our culture and how you define power. So I agree with you completely that it should start from the top and it should permeate downwards. But like you rightly said, there's one question lingering in my mind, that one does not raise conflict, not because they don't care about the organization. So in that context, if that responsibility is missing at the top, we find that the leadership is not self-aware of that. How do you think, as somebody in the lower strata, below the top leadership, how could I do something that would benefit the organization?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's not an easy choice, ma'am. Not an easy choice. I can tell you my own experience. I worked in a very, very toxic culture, but I decided to create a healthy environment within the unit I lead. I succeeded till I was thrown out of the system.
Thank you so much.
So it's very hard, but if more of us don't do it and keep looking upwards for direction, it's not coming. The power is within us, remember. Always. Don't look for anyone to give anything for you. Just do it.
So how much time it took for you?
Let me answer this question. How many years did I last? I lasted 4 or 5 years. And then I went on somewhere else to create another nuisance somewhere else. Yes, sir. Yeah, you said examples of good collaboration, right?
No, the last organizations also were able to avoid the conflict and bring collaboration instead of.
Yeah, there's so many examples of organizations, healthy organizations where good stuff is happening. And you've heard within our country, I think there are many, many examples. Overseas, there are examples. I have worked with smaller companies whose name is not very well known, but there, the primary thing is the mission. The primary thing is not the power of the people, right? So you have a hierarchy, but the hierarchy is a hierarchy of work, not a hierarchy of people. So that's the only way to do it. If you have to redefine what power means. And organizations that have done it well, they have been able to pull it off. Anyway, thank you so much. I think I'm taking too much time.
Thank you, Professor Tambe. This is for the Power Pack session after the lunch break. And may I request Shri P. Krishna Garu to present a memento to Professor Himanshu Tambe. May I request to present a memento by Mr. Prakash Garu.